What's going on? Good evening on this wonderful, glorious Wednesday. Welcome to the We Are Rise Show. I'm your host, Brett C. Collins. Tonight's show, Trump's Midnight Oil Moment. Trump will speak tonight at 9 o'clock. We will go directly to that, okay? And then we will bifurcate the show, and we'll listen to what President Trump will speak to from the Oval Office, and every news outlet will be covering it. If you want to stay with us, that's great. That's fantastic. We'll go right to it. Thank you so much. Also, no gas for you. NATO-EU braces for impact. A gas shortage, LNG oil shortage. People are saying in a lot of these places they might be locked down. Well, you know what? Get off your fat, lazy ass and walk. That might be good for you. Lawfully domiciled. We're going to get to the 14th Amendment and what that all means. Let's welcome my co-host, Marshall Smith. What is going on? Let's fucking go. I mean, tonight, I'm just stoked. I got a lot of good stuff, and we're going to move through it. I dropped the actual StreamYard chat if you want to come in and, make your little commentary about your thoughts about what Trump's going to say and then dip out. You can do so. Marshall, hello.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be long. I'll be hanging in. Yeah, I mean, we had the Artemis rocket, I guess, went up. I guess they do go up because I did see it go up.
Excuse me? The what?
The Artemis rocket.
You mean the Godzilla Japanese toy rockets
the
we used to watch
yeah.
from 1960 that
Yeah.
would go up and return? That's going to go
Went
by.
up. I saw it go up from my
No,
yard.
that's great. That's fantastic.
I think
That's
it
awesome.
just goes up there. I think it just floats up in low Earth orbit. Is personally my opinion.
That's just fantastic. I could care
I'm
less.
sure they had a great time. Yeah, I know.
Because if it explodes, they'll say it went past the dark side of the moon, and now we got to launch nukes at the moon to kill all the aliens that are on Alpha Centauri Moon Base 1. Have fun with that.
Well, the dark side of the moon is a cool place to be. Pink
Of course
Floyd
it
knows
is.
that.
Why wouldn't it be? It's fantastic. Everything about the moon is fantastic. It's made out of cheese. It's made out of water. It's there are areas of the moon we can't go by. Nothing that you can see that is real, they want to tell you. We're kind of stuck in this. I mean, maybe we'll get some transparency from this administration. I don't really care about this. We're not read in. They're not going to tell us. So I don't give a fuck about
the date is
all these
pretty funny, though.
The what?
I mean, why did the date?
Exactly. On April Fools, which is basically a new year on the calendar.
They're joking with us.
Yeah, of course they're fucking with us. If you think about what the calendar is, this falls on New Year's. And what calendar is that? I'll give you a guess. There's only two. We're on one, either Julian or Gregorian. Which one are we on? You look it up and get back to me.
I was looking on something. I didn't catch what you said. I was on something else.
I know. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't really care about all that stuff. It's just
I know.
It's just who gives a flying fuck.
Who
it does.
I think they're just who's going to make the most jokes.
It's April Fools. It's April Fool. He might image. What if President Trump doesn't show up tonight for his night? He's like, oh, it's canceled. April Fools. Oh, by the way, the war is fake. It's not real. It was already done 4 years ago. April Fools. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm talking about? Let's welcome in Pill.net. Hello over here on Rumble. And yes, what's up, True Terran on Rumble? What's going on? I see you, Ryzone 9300 on YouTube. Hello, Brent Marshall. Good to be here. Good to see everybody. What's up, Darla L? Curious Cat. Thank you for the can, the cookies. Evening, Patriots. What's going on? Trusty Turnip. How you doing? What's happening? Darla, with another can. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, fam. Let's go. Yeah, let's go rock and roll. I mean, I'm going to have fun tonight. I'm not going to make anything that's going to be weighing me down. I got a lot of funny stuff, good stuff. Would USA always there, always supporting the platform, dropping 217 gold pills. Thank you so much. Who else is here tonight? I saw you, Trusty Turnip. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's move on. Let's get to the stuff. Any thoughts before we start this about what your opinions or what you will opine on? What do you think President Trump is going to discuss tonight at 9 o'clock in the Oval Office that every channel will be interrupted and has to cover? Obviously, what do you think it is? Or is it going to be something different? What say you?
Well, he said himself he's going to be blasting NATO, and I'm sure he's going to do that. There's no doubt that he's not going to do that. I think he's going to show us that the Iran thing is pretty much done. I think that will help too because it's speculation. You know how they are, Brett.
Was it as real as that I painted it out to be, or is it something that we can't really just wrap our heads around? I mean, think about
No,
it.
I think there's a whole lot of truth in all of that,
Okay.
including Ukraine.
Okay.
Including
Well,
Ukraine.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I'm not gonna sit there and whatever, but there's nothing I've seen that has showed me anything about Ukraine to believe the war is real or not. But again, we're not read into it. The media doesn't want to cover it, and all we see is missiles flying all over the place, hitting Lebanon and Israel and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and all these other places, and it's just great. It's fantastic. I don't know if it's AI generated. I don't believe anything. That's how I stand today. I really don't believe anything. Is the war real? Most likely. Did people die? Absolutely. But the war, in the way I perceive it, in this perception management reality, it's not. Maybe one day you'll figure it out, but I'll get to you. So, a couple of things we're going to go through tonight. President Trump reveals his one condition after Iran asked for a ceasefire. And yes, here we go. Iran's new regime president, much less radicalized and far more intelligent than his predecessors. He just asked the United States of America for a ceasefire. We will consider when the Hormuz Strait is open, free and clear, and not gay, by the way. Not gay. We'll get to that. He wrote, until then, we'll be blasting the shit out of Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. You got to love President Trump. His words are like what? They're like a butcher chopping up meat. Oh, you like this meat a little tender? Let me smash it a little bit more. His words are so glorious. They're so fun. They're so epithet. You don't really respect and process his feeling about conditions in some way. He is a great narrator, a great orchestrator of thoughts and opinions and words. And I give him all the carte blanche that he deserves and stuff. Whatever you want to see about this and discuss about this, it's irrelevant. The message was released shortly before President Trump is set to speak tonight at 9 p.m., where the White House has promised an important update on Iran. Okay. So there's an important update on Iran. Most likely, that's where we're led to believe, Marshall, in some way. And I'll get to some of my talking points. I got another thing I want to show here before we get Marshall's commentary. But let me just put this out there because it's Easter weekend. Well, you can't have death and destruction and war and people being persecuted and all the wonderful things, that go along with war during the persecution of Christ and everything that follows with it and stuff. And I'm being flippant. So bear with me. So President Trump has just honored Jesus Christ by the name from the White House. He died from all of us. It was a miracle in all of history, the resurrection of Christ. God bless you, Mr. President. Let's listen to what he has to say. So in the midst of all these things, on Monday, the resurrection of Christ comes. And the time frame of this short interval of a war will elapse, supposedly. But what does this have to do with anything? Today's April Fool's. It's a New Year calendar on another calendar. If you look it up, you do your research. Let's listen to President Trump.
Was nailed to the cross, crucified, and he died for all of us. It was a day of darkness, but it wasn't the end. By any means, it was not the end. On Easter Sunday, the stone was rolled away and the grave was empty. Christians everywhere rejoiced, and we continue to rejoice. Easter is one of the incredible days. It was the miracle in all of history, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It was the great miracle, I guess, right? He told his followers, I am with you always, even to the end of the age, because of the events of Holy Week 20 centuries ago. People from every nation, language, and background can take on any difficulty, press through any trial, and endure any hardship. With Christ, not one thing can separate humanity from the powers of God's everlasting love. Across the generations, what happened on Easter has inspired his followers to love one another, to forgive, to do works of charity. and build the beautiful churches. And we have some of the most beautiful buildings in the world. To me, churches, I love great architecture, and we have some of the most beautiful churches. Christians have opened schools, ministries, and hospitals on every continent to teach care and heal those in need. And they do it with love, and they do it with great affection.
It is a very interesting thing. He had an Easter celebration today in the White House. That was many snippets as we, let's just say, conclude the war, end the war, down spiral the war in some way, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But I thought the relevance of having an Easter celebration in some way, I mean, he mentioned Passover, whatever. But, I thought that was, somehow in connection to the war coming to an end, and then we're moving off of this. He's speaking highly about Jesus Christ and what it means and how the application applies to all this. Marshall, your thoughts. Is there something to, let's just say, correlate with what President Trump was speaking at the White House today about Easter and celebrating Easter and all the magnificence of the resurrection while we wind down this war? I mean, what are you to, let's just say, ascertain here?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely obviously connections with, you got Jerusalem, Israel, the whole bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of connections all over the place. The thing I notice is that we've never really had a president go into detail like this about Christianity, et cetera, in the White House like this.
Mm-hmm.
Not to this deep, not to this extent. They have
Right.
always done the egg roll, the fun and games and all that. But
Right.
he's pretty serious about this. And another thing I saw the other day, take what you want from it, but Netanyahu was in a speech saying, we are going to work to end this violence against the Christians. We're going to work with the United States to end that. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? Is this a different guy? Is it some other dude, or has he been changed, or what happened? And the only thing I would like Trump to have said was, we are going to make an effort to make sure we bring back the church bells. We don't have them anymore, Brett. You ever notice
No, I
that?
know. That was one thing I thought of when he said that. There was a lot more stuff, but I want to move through this minutia. Drew
Okay.
Tarrant over here on Rumble dropping a $50 Rumble rant. Thank you. Happy hump day, fellas. I want to thank you so much. You're pretty much one of the sole guys that support the platform on Rumble. I want to thank you so much for dropping that. Like, share, and subscribe. Help us out all over the platform. You're all over the place that you can do so. You can help us out on pill.net, dropping those gold pills. You can help out Marshall, Ko-Fi.com/Sukto74. You can buymeacoffee.com/WeAreRise. Yes, I appreciate your support, and I know you're always there, and I thank you, my friend. All right, let's continue on, because I got a lot more, and I got a lot of things to say. Breaking news, Trump reveals he'll torch NATO in a landmark speech tonight as he absolutely threatens to quit the disgusting alliance. We'll get into Article 13. We'll get into all the things that are paramount. We'll get into the advise and consent scenario, the notice of denunciation. We'll get into certain things. A lot of people saying it's not possible. He can't do it. Well, we'll see. Let's wait and see what's going to happen. Let's wait and see what he's going to say. Moving on, I'll show you another thing that President Trump said at his Easter celebration. And you know what? You got to love a president who celebrates Easter. I mean, when was the last president that did that? Bush didn't do that. I don't recall him doing Easter stuff. Reagan did. Breaking, President Trump eviscerates useless NATO allies, saying they failed his test. We had some very bad allies, and I've told you on the show since last year, the Fed, NATO, UN are all taking a dive. They are the manifestation of a construction of a 50, 60, 70, 80-year window that has basically broken this country, have stolen our wealth, has eviscerated this country, has brought this country to its knees, and allowed this shit to go on. Fuck the UE. Fuck NATO. And I can tell you right now, pull out 100,000 plus troops, pull out all the nukes. It's time to separate. We need to decouple. Do you understand? A divorce is happening. It's not going to be some letter of intent. We are separating. They no longer have the viability, the plausibility, or anything they say. And they're going to go into a deep, dark winter because if we keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, because we're in control, watch the Five Eyes. New Zealand, Australia, Starma, Great Britain. They're all going to be squeezed like a fucking pimple until they say, Uncle, Canada is going to beg for us. They will surrender to us. Yes, they will. My God, I can't wait for it. I fucking hate Canada. I hate the institution of the representation of Canada. Do you understand that? Let's play this.
Over in Iran, we're sort of pretty much winding that up. Have to take a few more hits. We want to make sure we don't ever have them allow them to have a nuclear weapon because they'll use it. And you see how serious they were with the conventional ballistic missiles. They have thousands of them. We've blown most of them up. You notice every week it gets a little less at us and at our allies. We've had some very good allies over there. We've had some very bad allies in NATO. I hope you're all watching that, Scott.
Here we go.
We had some asks, and we spend trillions of dollars on NATO, and when we need them, which we never do, we didn't need them here either. To be honest, I was really asking because I wanted to see what they do. We didn't need them. We blasted the hell out of them, out of Iran, and the last thing I needed was NATO stepping in our way because they're a paper tiger.
Interesting points, Marshall. He's basically setting up for tonight, I think, multiple, let's just say, discussions of the end of NATO, the end of the alliance as we know it. And we can go into Article 13, which is basically what it is that, which was created in 1949 treaty, that there are formal written scenarios of notice of denunciation where the United States holds court of this for any allied nation to want to formally request to, let's just say, dick off. And now we're the ones. We control this vassal because we're the ones that pay the majority of the functionality to make this survivable. And I think at this point, no matter what documents that we'll file, no matter what formality that will go into, it doesn't matter about the 2024 NDAA Act, where it says Section 1250A prohibits a president from suspending and terminating or withdrawing from NATO that Marco Rubio, as a senator, signed off on. Without Senate advice and consent, 2/3 supermajority acts of Congress, it's not going to happen. Watch it happen. Watch it happen. It's going to entirely happen. All we need is a year under Article 13. We don't need, because the treaty already puts us in place to dip out. But there's more there. Since Article 13 is basically resolute to the idea, you didn't come to our aid. You don't want to help us out. You've chosen not to do anything. And considering we hold all the paperweights here, we pay the most amount of money, we're not going to give you anything. Fuck the Senate. Fuck the House. Who gives a flying fuck? He's not a king, but he could do a lot more than you could possibly imagine. And I think people are losing their shit over this. But you know what? The Senate dipped out. Don't want to Save America Act, but you want to what? You want to defend NATO? Oh, my God. He's putting that on blast, Marshall.
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed was the first thing he said was, we're going to make sure that Iran does not have nukes. Mm-hmm. Now, my translation of that is he wasn't talking about Iran.
Right.
I think he was talking about their neighbors, Israel.
Yeah.
And probably really both. Let's just be honest. I mean, but
it could be in unison in some way, but the question is, we're not there yet. I mean, we have to be told this, or we're not going to be told this in some way. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I think he
can't say Israel, Brett. He can't just,
Well, I mean, look, if he can't say it, if he can't say it, then why speculate that it is? See, what I'm saying is, and simply, if we don't know what it is, why all the hubbub and speculation? Because I don't want to put my hand on that to suggest that's one way or another. So other people want to say that. That's great. That's fantastic. But since you have no sauce for the gravy, no sauce for the food, and you're putting up a lot of whatever and stuff, and you're feeding a lot of people, but you're not really, you're poking the bears. You're not saying anything that's realistic. I would be careful with that nomenclature. I'd be careful about dropping that, because I don't basically allow myself to get into that and say, oh, well, they're talking about Israel when it comes really about Iran. I don't know what they're talking about. All I know is simply someone who may be Iran that is operating both on duality with maybe Israel because they sold them the stuff, or maybe other scenarios where this uranium had went to. See, you have to be careful about this in some way. You don't want to get off on a tangent.
Well, I'll add
official.
a caveat. I'll add a caveat. That's my speculation.
Okay, fair enough. It's official. The U.S. may leave NATO, and even Secretary of State Rubio just put him on blast. See, I find this a little hypocritical, because this is a guy in 2024 as a senator voted for the NDAA Act, who prohibits a president from suspending and terminating and withdrawing from NATO without Senate advice and consent. Do you find that hypocritical and opportunistic? And what are the caveats, as Marshall likes to use that syntax, or let's just say this, to reverse this? Listen to this.
The NATO alliance means that we can't use those bases, that we can no longer use those bases to defend America's interests. The NATO is a one-way street. The NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe. But when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it. We're going to finish the job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined after this conflict is over.
I think he's perfectly served up into this position, because he was the one who promulgated the 2024 NDAA Act, Section 1250. And he spoke highly about we should not leave NATO willy-nilly, which prohibits the president from suspending and terminating or withdrawing without the consent of the Senate or a supermajority in this. And now he's responsible as Secretary of State of showcasing and illuminating why we should leave NATO based upon his past and previous thoughts about the process. So I highlight that not because it's opportunistic and hypocritical. It's because he is a better vessel to utilize his own words and verbiage and maybe go back and say, wait a minute. I was saying in some way, the president should unilaterally do this, but on his own without any preconditions. That's what's going to come into play. But Article 13 in the 1949 treaty gives formal and written document notification of a denunciation within a year. So what better guy, who's the guy that led the charge to make sure we just don't write off NATO immediately, and he becomes Secretary of State and now has to what? decouple from what he signed off on, answer to that, and help walk this back in such a way where he, as Secretary of State, will have to make that argument going forward. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's smart. President Trump always 10 steps ahead, putting Marco Rubio in there. You're on blast, buddy. It's your time to step up to the plate. We know you got 10 jobs. We know you got jobs all over the place. But here's the thing. You helped support the bill that was passed. So what are the provisions inside that bill that are outside this that we could focus on the treaty to leave this what? Cold War relic. And let me tell you right now, it is a Cold War relic, and I have some things I got to say. Let me say this about the regime change. The regime change narrative that happened on Trump's watch, effectuated or a byproduct. Did it happen because we did it, allowed it to unfurl out, expand, spread, and unroll? Think about that. And if we didn't facilitate it directly, only indirectly, more than likely, which I think, I guess that Trump's certainty is all about for the incoming regime who he calls smart, intelligent people that are willing to broker an honest deal. My question is, how does he know this? How does he know that? But he's saying that. I wonder if the EU sees their fleeting power diminishment. They're being vanquished rather quickly. So they're forced, the NATO allies, to close all their bases, Italy, Spain, and many others, to the U.S. because Iran represents something more. What is that? Is significant to their economic power. Who really controls the EU? Are those the same people, we'll just say, or groups who proxy out Iran's vast oil wealth and yet distribute it out through many different colorings? Individuals involved in the crime syndicate that profit off this. That is the problem. And I think in some way we're going to see the slow burn of the EU and NATO because one or two are going to give way. But the Iran conflict is evidently and undoubtedly straining and taxing the EU-NATO alliance, with it being undue pressure, influence via visa the U.S., and now the walls are crackling all around, now becoming a burden, I say to you. Think about that. If it's becoming a burden, President Trump has now boxed them in, Marshall. He's now giving them relative court to say, hey, look, maybe we don't need 100,000 plus troops in NATO. We don't need all these bases, okay, in Ramstein and Italy and all these other different things. Maybe we need to pull back. Maybe instead of him pulling back, they force their eviction. How about that one? And if they force their eviction because he basically responds to the Article 13 scenario and say, we kick them all. Well, we're basically what? Giving them what they want, their own surrender. And you know what? We're doing it because what Marco Rubio and Trump is saying. They don't want us there. They don't want us participating in this. And it's perfectly fine for us to leave on its own and not have to deal with the Senate or the Congress, because ultimately the treaty, which basically showcases what the ratification is under the denunciation, is that, hey, we don't want you here. Okay, no problem. We'll leave. What better way to walk away from a scenario that you don't really have to get a supermajority in the Congress or 60 votes in the Senate? It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's deservedly so. I mean, it should have happened a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, as you mentioned, the EU, that's going to dissolve the EU, in my opinion. That's going to end it.
Right.
Or it'll be
what's going to happen
nail.
first? The EU ends NATO or NATO ends the EU? I think NATO ends the EU.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to consider these are people that are bureaucrats that force their will onto NATO. And NATO is saying, you forced this into this submission. And now Trump is basically saying, you know what? You don't want to pay your fair share. You don't want to allow us to do this. You don't want to come to our aid. I'm invoking Article 13. Fuck you and die. And you know what? Don't worry about the Senate. Don't worry about this. I think NATO will break away from the EU bureaucrats, and they will all resign, and they will step down in unison. And now Europe will have to rethink about being the paper tiger about how they deal with Russia going forward, when the United States might be working out possibilities and agreements and trade deals with Russia as we move on. NATO, which is representative of the European continent, the EU, what have you, is a dead stick, ladies and gentlemen. It's a godless, soulless, let's just say, unison platform of people that are not willing to walk away from their Baal Satanist commanders.
It's an old mindset. I think we're moving into a time where you're not going to have to be pushing these wars. These countries are not going to be forced into doing this, which I believe they were for many, many years, into doing wars and all this crap. I think we're going to go into a time where everybody realizes that, look, this is my area. I'm going to run my country, and everybody does their own thing. Now, is it going to be kumbaya? No, you're still going to have your militaries, etc. I mean, I even saw one of the countries' leaders or premiers or whatever was tearing down the EU flag at their country, their office building in their I forget which country. It was a European country, but they're over it. They're over it. They don't want EU up in their.
So I think NATO, as Marshall is basically agreeing with me to some level, that NATO will walk away from the EU. The EU is just a bureaucratic, economic controlling structure of the greater syndicate that has dominance over, let's just say, independent and sovereign countries inside the continent of Europe. And they wheel and deal their posture onto them of what they want. For example, they forced upon them throughout the continent illegal criminal migration. And I believe right now, as they've turned the corner and walking it back, the EU is done. Now, whatever happens with NATO, if we walk away from NATO and stuff, the question will be, will they find some type of realization to stick together, to work together? Well, it's going to cost a lot of money, especially if we're not going to be there. And what happens with Canada and Mexico is going to be another scenario. And that's why I'm talking about American hegemony. We are now ready to move forward. Once we lead NATO and we tell the EU and NATO, fuck off and die, we are on a trajectory to move forward, to control Greenland, Canada, Mexico, many other different territories that are that were under British control, under the British Crown, or under the Bank of London, or many other cryptic sidebar scenarios of these failed banking systems, a Federal Reserve system that collapsed in Iran. And you're seeing it today. And President Trump is going to He's going to tell you tonight. Trump says he's considering pulling out of the paper tiger NATO. The president's comments are the least threat to America's allies after their reluctance to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is going to remain closed. I'm going to explain that. European allies see the U.S. war against Iran as one choice, and a conflict they are not consulted on beforehand. Well, too bad, because you're all traitors, and you know what? The bottom line is you didn't show up for dinner. You made sure the soup was cold, and then you blamed the chef for not cooking the food you didn't like. Well, too fucking bad. There's only so many seats at the table, and you know what we have to do is reshuffle the decks of the tables to add new seats with new names. President Trump is reportedly considering pulling the United States out of NATO. I said this last year, the year before. I've been talking about this for a fucking long time. This is what undercuts America's viability, plausibility. America's allies, after the reluctance to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In an interview with the Telegraph newspaper, the president has described a 77-year-old defensive alliance as a paper tiger. Oh my God, where were you? You didn't want to show up for dinner. And you blamed the chef for not cooking what you wanted. Trump told the paper, oh, yes. I would say it's beyond reconciliation. I'm not going to play it. It doesn't matter. We all get it. We all know what's coming, Marshall. It's going to be fucking glorious. And this is one of the three pillars on this platform that I have asserted that is going to come crumbling down. Not just this. You have the Federal Reserve. You have all the entanglements of the Federal Reserve. And what's the third position that I stand on that is also going to be, let's just say, affected, actuated in some way that is also going to be what? That we're discussing at the moment, the United Nations.
Yeah, I just said this on, and I have to say it again on chat,
Yeah.
is that they're basically like the kid, like Oliver in the movie. And he's saying, please, sir, may I have some more? Well, they're going to be begging for porridge. They don't get no dessert. Somebody mentioned they're begging for no. They're going to be begging for porridge.
Yep.
And they're not going to get it. No! More for you. You know what I mean?
No
Just
soup
like-
for you. That's why there's no
right.
gas for you. See, he's going to close off the strait. We're going to box everybody in. And that's why Starmer, and you have the Australian Prime Minister, New Zealand, Canadian Prime Minister coming out, because they're going to suffer an economic breakdown because they went woke and they got broke. And they haven't not fortified their positions from an energy level with winds and solar. And so President Trump is going to show them a new light. He's going to put a stranglehold on them. People saying, well, we're going to be on an energy lockdown in the next 2 months. Not us. You think that's going to happen here under this guy?
He's
No
got 'em by
fucking
the
way.
balls. He's got them by
Okay.
the balls.
He's going to squeeze them so hard, he's going to pop their nuts out like a fucking pimple. Oh, it's going to be glorious. And Australia is saying, you're going to have to walk to work, stay home. He's showing them their feckless weakness, aptitude of not wanting to be a part of this. And he says, you know what? No problem. You don't have to be a part of this. We're just going to control the Strait of Hormuz, not blow it up like Newt Gingrich, fucking idiot, or many other fucking tools. Let's just blow it up. We already seized it. You know we already seized it. You know we have it under control. Do you know that? He is not. He's basically going to tell you tonight it's already under control. We got it, baby. We got it. He didn't tell the media. He didn't tell you. He didn't call me up and say, hey, Brett, put this out. No. He said he's going to tell you it's all under control. One thunder, thank you for the can, Senior Polo. Gifted the ship. Brett, do you think Trump promised to defeat Iran in exchange for monetary investment in the U.S.? Well, I think that's a loaded question. I think there's a lot of things that are involved with Iran. Now, if you're seizing the whole island, you have control of this, and you're not telling anybody. And Iran is basically, let's just putting the subterfuge and the propaganda and the agitprop out there saying, we'll do it, but we'll play ball. So they put out their press commentary, and it's already done. No one's been killed, no one's done. And they're working in this some way for this capacity for a new regime to step up that has been, like I said, that I told you in some way, that was allowed to happen indirectly. And they know who they are and they can trust. So I believe that regardless to say we have control of the Strait of Hormuz, Navy ships will be allowed to be controlling every vassal state, every area that moves through the Strait of Hormuz, which is 22 miles wide. And to what? Continue to protect without insurance, without the Bank of London, without all these other subsidiaries that are blackmailing these ships or these countries in some way, or not utilizing the blackmail and other things. And I will get to that. Thank you, One Thunder, for the can. To all I give to the can. I wonder if they will call the White House upon arrival. Artemis Myars. Yeah, just like they had in, what is it? That
Nixon.
other video. Yeah, it's like, of course. Curious
Got the
Cat, gift to the
dial-up phone.
cookie. Darla after gift of the can. Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, of course. All these things are part of this stuff. So here's Iran's rebuttal. Subterfuge, propaganda. You could see it. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian urged, have you heard of him? No. Urged the American public to question the purpose of the war with Iran and said Tehran has never been pursued pursued aggression in the letter. Okay. Iran has never in its modern history chosen a path of aggression, expansion, colonialism, domination. Again, subterfuge, agitprop. He said Iranians harbor no enmity toward the nations, including the people of America, adding portraying Iran as a threat is the product of a political and economic wins of the powerful. Now, listen to this. This raises the fundamental question. Exactly, which of the American people's interests are truly being served this war, he wrote. He alleged that the United States was acting on Israel's behalf in the conflict with Iran. And I'll leave it at that because ultimately that's what you're made to see. It's not coming out of the administration. It's coming out of the agitprop, subterfuge propagandists of a newly formed, that's why I discussed this, regime that we didn't facilitate directly, only indirectly, more than likely. Certainly that Trump is about all the incoming who calls them smart, intelligent, thinking people that are willing to negotiate, maybe even deal. Yeah. Okay. Marshall, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, deals? Did he say deal? I mean,
well,
look,
he didn't say that this new president that we find out who he is or whatever he is and stuff in some way. When I put out this little discussion about how I was prosing this and stuff, if we didn't facilitate this directly and only indirectly, and which is more than likely, and I said, I guess that's Trump's certainty that it's all about for the incoming regime, who he calls smart and intelligent, which he does in some way. So he has an understanding. He has an opinion about this. He knows a lot more than we're understanding in some way. And I would say the regime change narrative is not what we're seeing. We're not being told about this in some way. We're not being agitpropped into a certain position that we did it. You're never going to know how it formed, why it formed, who's allowing to come in, who's allowing to exit. Be careful about that. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead, Marshall.
yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to look like the last guys that all they did was put their proxies in there.
Right.
I get
Exactly. That's the point.
But what I'm thinking is, look, you don't want to
Even
look
though
like them.
we might have put our proxies in there. That's the point.
That's my point. Yes, and
But
that's
we're
why
not telling anybody we put
well,
the proxies
we don't want
in.
to do that. We want to make everything nice.
Right.
Look,
Nicey.
We got a deal.
Smooth,
We got a deal.
It's good.
We're gonna make a deal you can't refuse. And like
Exactly.
all those guys on Karg Island that fight for Iran, I say all you got to do is go on to Karg Island, set up some speakers, and say, "Look, we got envelopes for you guys. They got cash."
Yeah. They did it in Iraq.
You-
I don't
you
know if
just
this
buy it
administration,
all off,
I don't know if
give
this administration will do the same thing as the previous. I don't believe that.
well, you
I
can
think
do
they
all
don't
kinds-
use,
offer
they don't pay all
them.
people.
Right.
I haven't heard anything in that matter.
I'm not. Look,
That's Iraq. This is totally different.
You can
President
offer-
Trump doesn't bribe, cajole.
right.
He forces his hand and makes you surrender.
He can offer them their life.
Yes.
All right. I mean,
that's all they
that
can
was
offer.
a possibility, but that could easily be
A
done
better
too.
life.
Yeah, a better. That's the whole key. That's what Trump always says. Remember when he went to North Korea and
Yeah.
he told Kim Jong Un, "You could have this oceanfront property.
Exactly.
It could be beautiful.
Right.
Why don't you want that? Why do you want kids lying around the ground dead?"
Yeah, we could put
killing
we could put hotels on Karg Island. We don't even know what's there. I think it's already been taken. It's already
Probably
been captured. And President Trump saying, look, the island's been closed down. The Strait of Hormuz says, no, the blackmail, the subjugation of everything, I'll get to all that stuff, has been what? The coercion, the intimidation, the extortion levels of all that has been what? Holding the strait hostage for who and why? Restructuring the maritime law and not what? Allowing the blackmail of energy transports to continue. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to say right now, there's a lot of dumb people out in the world. Let's see this right now.
Isn't it a little bit homophobic that we're so focused on the Straits of Hormuz and not the gays of Hormuz?
Yes, I agree. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Why do you think they're willing to leave the gays of Hormuz behind?
I think it's just historically, like, gays have always been very discriminated against, which is wrong on so many levels.
Even in war.
Yeah, even in war, it just takes more reform in government, obviously, and then also educating society.
Just feel like if we're gonna go in there, we can't leave the gay people behind.
Right.
I don't think we should go in there at all, but if we're going to the gays of Hormuz, we could turn it into Fire Island.
For sure.
Isn't it a little bit
Fire Island
homophobic?
out of New York, pole smoking island of fucking disgusting. No, I'm not even going to say. Marshall, I mean, do you weep for the future? Do you think people are dialed in about this? I mean, what is the percentage of people that are dialed in about this? Are they so completely, let's just say, they have no idea what's going on? And, I say it's over 20% of the population that are completely lost, like this fucking boob in some way. And I just don't think that there's going to be many people that are going to make it out. They're not going to be able to handle a lot of things that are about to, let's just say, unroll out. It's going to be ugly. Thank you, G. Westbury, for the $20 Rumble Rant. Great catch, a live stream. Thank you so much for your support. Marshall, your thoughts?
Sad thing about it is that they're so damn lazy that they don't want to know the truth.
Right.
I mean, they won't lift a finger. Here they've got everything they need right in their hand on their cell phone. And they could dig up all kinds of shit so easy. Like when we were kids, Brett, what did we have to do? We have to go to an encyclopedia.
Yeah, I think I had those green encyclopedias,
Yeah,
the
with
Britannicas.
the whole setup.
I had them back in like the late 70s, early 80s. I don't know what happened to them. My
They were
parents
great,
divorced.
actually. I did so many essays and stuff from them. And these
I also
kids,
had this big thing
The
that someone
dictionary.
gave me. No, it wasn't. It was a giant atlas of information I got in college, and something happened. I lost it, and I misappropriated, and I was really sad. It was a great 90s version of information. I also had a history book in college that talked about how who's our ruling class of people. This was when conspiracies were okay to talk about. I had a history class where are the people that are running a country really the people running our country? It was a history class, and I had this great. I mean, it was 500 pages. It was fantastic. I had to write an essay on it, and it just disappeared. And that class is gone. And that was at the, I'm not going to say, but
you should look for it online and see if you can find it.
maybe. I mean, I remember some of the syllabus I
Probably
had.
got a lot of really great
Well,
stuff.
I went to one college to another because one college I was at, a lot of people got murdered, and I had to dip out because there was a serial killer. And then I go to Central Florida, and I had to deal with a lot of, I had to deal with more bullshit there at that time in the 90s than most of these people have to deal with right now. I think going to college there, because a lot of people tell me at UCF, it's not as bad as you think it is. I mean, it's always all this stuff. But what I went to deal with these college professors, they're under control, or they have some limited viability to go off script. But I had some nut jobs. I had some people I forced back, and I no longer support whatever. And if anybody ever asked me to say anything, like, I'd go fuck off and die. So Jim Ferguson says, Europe just got the message. It's not a good one. President Trump has made it clear. America's finishing its objective and then stepping back. No more world policing. No more world automatic police protection. No more guarantees. His words matter. The Strait, that's not for us. That will be for France, maybe. That will be for whoever's using it. Maybe it's not for us. Read between the lines. This is a strategic shift. The United States is signaling we secured our interests, we achieved our objectives, and now responsible for yours. For Europe, this is a wake-up call because for decades, security was outsourced. Energy vulnerable was ignored. Military strength was allowed to decline, and now reality is returning fast. If America steps back, who protects the critical trade routes? Interesting. Who secures energy supply lines? Interesting. Who responds when escalation happens again? Europe is exposed, and it has been left exposed by its own leadership. This is not about geopolitics. This is about consequence, weak energy policy, weak defense policy, weak leadership, all converging at the same moment. And now the pressure is rising. The safety net may no longer be there. The world is shifting and Europe is not ready. I'll leave it at that. We got to move forward. And that was excellent. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know. Look, Brett, when we talked about earlier about the whole Iran thing, the whole thing, it just leads me more. And then this whole astronaut thing today, the whole thing makes me wonder what you said in the whole beginning. How is this what is real and what is not? And it just, I get kind of hung up on that because it's true. We have no idea.
I don't care about NASA and all that stuff because I know it's not real.
We have no idea what is the war actually doing. How many people are actually...
Well, that's the point. And I keep highlighting the fact is that a lot of people, especially if you look back about the Ukraine war, you know nothing about. You know nothing about. In this thing, it's a different scenario. You know as much as you know through the people that hate Israel and the people that support Israel. And then enough that we could see that they're able to show on certain news platforms of places that are attacked, that the president speaks of, and there's more, let's just say, periodicals talking about this. Senior Polo, thank you for the can. Democrats will sue to stop Trump for leaving NATO. You may be right, but I think in some way, the only people that can stop President Trump is the Senate, advise and consent, or the supermajority of the Congress. But overall, Article 13 is very clear. All right. If you don't come to our, let's just say, help or aid, we can facilitate a non-brokership. We can disavow this partnership.
They broke
and
the
it takes a
contract.
year. So I think this has already been done and set up. Darrell gifted the can. These leaders have TDS. So bad now they pay, but the people will suffer for their evil decisions. And now they're flooded with illegals to contend with, too. Yeah, we'll get to all this. Thank you so much. Let's listen to this. This is a good one. All right. Did Trump attack Iran on behalf of Israel as an anti-Trump narrative claims? Or is this part of a much larger strategy to establish the U.S. as the world's superpower for decades? I said to you, this is what we are, American hegemony. We are headed this way.
Trump's recent decisions have confused most commentators around the world. Panama, Venezuela, Iran. To many, these moves look random, chaotic, and disconnected. But they are not. They are part of a larger strategy. This is not just about Iran or Venezuela. This is also about China. Every great power begins by securing its own backyard, and Trump is doing exactly that. By pushing China out of Panama and cutting Iran, Russia, and China out of Venezuela after Maduro, he is reducing rival influence in Latin America. Cuba already understands what this shift means. But this is not only about rival influence. Trump also knows that if America wants to stop endless waves of mass migration from South America, then those countries must become stronger economically. That is why his support for Argentina matters. Not as charity, but as strategy and a model. This is a calculated effort to stabilize the hemisphere and secure the space closest to the United States. That is the first part of his global plan. Trump is not just moving against regimes, he is moving against the structure behind them. For years, Venezuela and Iran were among China's most important energy suppliers. At the same time, the Islamic Republic kept the Middle East in constant instability through proxy networks and regional pressure, forcing the United States to waste military and economic resources, lose strategic focus, and basically making America be stretched too thin to be effective. And that was the point. As long as the Islamic Republic keeps the region and the global energy market unstable, the United States can never fully focus on Beijing and other deeper issues. So if the regime falls, China loses more than just a main energy provider. It loses one of the pressure points that helped distract and overstretch America for years. Its forward position begins to crack, and that is why Iran matters so much. Iran is not just another enemy, it is a prize. If the Islamic Republic falls and a democratic government emerges, Trump gains far more than a military victory. He opens one of the biggest and richest and most untouched markets in the world to the United States, locks the region into a long-term pro-American alignment, reduces chronic threats to energy security, and weakens the anti-American bloc at one of its most important points. But this isn't just about enemies. It was also about allies. The US is not desperate for help from its allies. The Iranian regime had already been weakened by years of incompetence, regional overreach, and repeated blows from the United States and Israel. So when Trump asked America's allies for support, he was doing something bigger than coalition building. He was testing loyalty. Who truly stands with the United States, and who only uses America when it is convenient? That was the real test, which many Europeans failed. And then comes the deepest layer of all, the battle over the anti-American narrative. For years, failed wars and messy interventions didn't just damage US credibility abroad, they rewired how Americans see themselves. The dominant story became simple. Wherever America goes, it makes things worse. And that story isn't just organic, it's amplified. By influential voices in media and commentary, from figures like Tucker Carlson to Mehdi Hasan, to so-called geopolitical commentators like Chinese Professor, all, in different ways, reinforcing the idea that American power is exhausted and fundamentally destructive. Trump is trying to break that narrative, not by denying past failures, but by reframing the future, that under the right conditions, American power can still create a positive outcome, and that regime change is not a dirty word. It depends on how, when, and under what conditions it is carried out, not on the concept itself. And those conditions are specific. First, the people of that country must genuinely want regime change. Second, there must be a widely recognized opposition figure the majority can accept. And this is exactly where most people still fail to understand Iran. They ignore what happened on January 8th and 9th, 2026. When Prince Reza Pahlavi called on Iranians inside and outside the country to rise, and the regime responded with a brutal crackdown. They ignore what that moment revealed, that a large number of Iranians inside the country and across the diaspora can rally around a single recognizable figure, and that changes everything. And this is where most analysts make a critical mistake. They keep looking at Iran through the Iraq model. Iran is not Iraq. Iraq's borders were drawn on a map by the British. Iran has been a nation with over 2,500 years of national identity. Iran is not held together by force, but by a shared identity, which means opposition can consolidate, not fragment. In Iraq, Syria, or Afghanistan, that unified center never existed. So when pressure builds, the outcome is not fragmentation like those countries. It is stronger unification. The Islamic regime knows this, and that is why it has put a lot of effort to push the narrative that Iranians are divided. Trump knows this too, and he knows that success in Iran could be as big as the fall of the Berlin Wall. A unified, democratic, rich nation of 90 million, grateful to America, will for decades change the existing anti-American narrative. Trump is securing America's backyard, isolating China, breaking one of the main energy and geopolitical structures behind Beijing's rise, ending instability in global energy market, testing the loyalty of allies, and trying to prove that under the right conditions, regime change does not have to be a scary word for the world's only superpower. This is not just policy. It is the outline of a new global order, with the United States as the undisputed superpower. And the real question is no longer whether this strategy exists. The real question is, which countries recognize where this is going and align with it early, and which ones misread it and find themselves on the wrong side of a system that is already being reshaped.
It's fantastic. That basically encapsulates everything that's taking place with Keir Starmer, the UK, the I forget the Australian Prime Minister Bolsonaro, whatever his name is. They're all basically, they are seeing this and saying, we don't understand it. It's too late for them to react. It's over. American hegemony is now on the frontal cortex of everybody. We are moving forward, whether you want to be a part of it or not. NATO is being left aligned. That was a great illustration about breaking down of understanding what it is. Yes, it's not just winning hearts and minds, but if we resettle Iran in a different fashion in some way, that there be able to be less of an anti-American sentiment, and there will be a nominal peace plan in place that will be facilitated through this peace board and many other facets out there, then President Trump has achieved his goal. And the bottom line is as simply is that we are redefining the Iraq and Afghanistan war. We are no longer going to be quartered and boxed into these things that if we have to use our power, we will wield it at a time given when necessary and not be held back because of those scenarios of failed and feckless and rudderless leaders at the time that basically put us in conditions that were untenable and unwinnable, Marshall. Fantastic. I'm dropping this. I'm dropping it.
It exactly portrays everything that we talked about really for the last 6 months since Trump announced he was going to take Greenland or partake and look at that. So when you look at Greenland and he mentioned that, then we talked about Venezuela and Cuba, and it all came back to everything that we've already talked about, that we've been talking about, and that is securing our hemisphere. And when we secure our hemisphere, as we talked about before, that weakens these other regimes or whatever, China, whatever. It puts them on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has to go back to their own neighborhood and look, take care of your own neighborhood. Quit worrying about, all of us, worry about yourself. But it actually does put strains on them where we're now controlling Hormuz, which, that's another part of it.
Well, I'll put it this way. The Australian Prime Minister, you're going to see, is cutting prices to bring more petrol, diesel, and fertilizer, be more fuel efficient, setting up the energy shortage crisis that's going to placate their country and many other of Five Eyes and many of the European allies, and for the next several months, keeping it closed. So I think in some way we're going to hear this, and he's forewarning his people. They're going to suffer because of what they've done.
Mystic country. But I understand that right now it's hard to be positive.
Right now.
The war in the Middle East has caused the biggest spike in petrol and diesel prices in history. Australia is not an active participant in this war, but all Australians are paying higher prices because of it. I know that you're seeing this at the servo and at the supermarket. And I understand farmers and truckies, small businesses and families are doing it tough. And the reality is the economic shocks caused by this war will be with us for months. Tonight, I want to speak directly with you about what the government is doing to shield Australia in these uncertain times. And also what all of us can do to help our country and help each other in the period ahead. On Monday...
It sounds like COVID. It sounds like COVID. It sounds to me that the Five Eyes, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, maybe other countries, are going to be hit so hard with this crisis, this shortage, because of the Strait of Hormuz and Great Britain, because they didn't plan ahead. They didn't think ahead. They didn't want to be a part of what President Trump was saying. And so we are now, controlling the Strait of Hormuz? Possibly. And so now we're going to squeeze them so hard that the people over there are going to overthrow their governments. When there's no gas, no LNG, no oil, and they're told you have to walk to work or stay home. Can you imagine that? So it's not going to be like COVID again. It's just going to be like, think about Australia. You got to walk miles upon miles to get to a supermarket or a grocery or a gas station that might not have gas. Think about in Great Britain. He is forcing them to capitulate. That is the bottom line. They will either yield to American hegemony or they will suffer and die. And at this point, I don't think President Trump cares because they're part of this cartel. They are part of this what? American defeatism. They've relied far too long about destroying this country, bleeding us dry, and doing everything they can to make sure we pay for them. And now we get to squeeze your balls and see what happens. Yeah, we do. And we get to play uncle. We get to say, you know what? Fuck you, mate. Fuck you, Canada. I can't wait to say fuck you, Canada. Fuck you, Great Britain. Fuck all of you people. Because now we're going to fucking strangle you. We're going to make you bleed. We're going to make you pay. We're going to make you suffer in such a way that the last 100 years are going to look like a picnic. You are now going to bleed. We are going to give you 1,000 death cuts in so many ways. And you will be overturned by your people. We will make sure of it. And I can't wait. This is going to be glorious. And fuck the Five Eyes. Fuck Europe. Fuck the continent of bullshit. They can suck a cock. These people are Satanists. They hate America. They used America. They pilfered off America. And it's no more.
National Cabinet adopted the National Fuel Security Plan. Leaders from both sides of politics, from right around the country, working together to keep Australia moving, making sure that we are prepared so that if the global situation gets worse and our fuel supplies are seriously disrupted over the long term, we can coordinate the next steps together. Today, we cut the fuel excise in half, cutting the tax on every litre of petrol by 26 cents. Those savings have started showing up at your petrol station. For our truckies, we have cut the heavy vehicle road user charge to zero. Both these measures will be in place for the next 3 months. We are working to bring the price of fuel down, to make more fuel here and to keep it on.
So they're working from a standpoint of like, see, we're paying top dollar, and they're working to pay and control the amount of what pricing that goes into the petrol, diesel, LNG, and anything else. So President Trump is showing you they are able to control it. And I wonder why that is. Were they able to control ours as well and dictate to us? Maybe. Let's listen to the rest of this.
Sure, and get more fuel here, using our strong trading relationships with our region to bring more petrol, diesel and fertiliser to Australia. Now, it's the Australian way that people want to do their bit. And there are simple ways that you can. You should go about your business and your life as normal. Enjoy your Easter. And if you're hitting the road, don't take more fuel than you need. Just fill up like you normally would. Think of others in your community, in the bush, and in critical industries. And over coming weeks, if you can switch to catching the train or bus or tram to work, do so. That builds our reserves.
Ride a bike.
For people who have no choice but to drive. Farmers and miners and tradies who need diesel every single day. And all those shift workers and nurses who do so much for our country. The months ahead may not be easy. I want to be
They're forewarning everybody, foreboding.
No government can promise to eliminate the pressures that this war is causing. I can promise we will do everything we can to protect Australia from the worst of it. These are uncertain times, but I'm absolutely certain of this. We will deal with these global challenges the Australian way, working together and looking after each other, as we always have.
Their own people. Let me tell you something right now. These countries are going to run out of gas. They're going to run out of fuel. They're going to run out of oil. There's going to be a shortage in airline transportation. There's going to be a shortage of big cargo transportation. There's going to be a shortage of a variety of different things. They're going to affect these countries globally, and they did it. And President Trump is going to showcase, because you weren't there to participate, to help facilitate what? The opening of the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, what happened is we're going to walk away, even though we're controlling it. circumspect. And then it's going to be shut down. And then all these other places are not going to be able to, all these other ships are not going to pass through. And then it's going to be on them. You didn't want to what? Be a part of it. And now you're going to pay a price. Marshall, your thoughts? We got to move on. Man.
Yeah, this guy's turning that. He's going to turn that country into Mad Max beyond thunder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be off, man.
Yeah, you're not going to have any gas.
They're going to.
A lot of these countries are not going to have gas. Think about this: we were locked down for COVID, but we had everything: alcohol, gas, marijuana. We had everything.
Strippers.
Now the lifeblood of our civilization, which is not alcohol, which is not marijuana, which is not medicine per se. It's just what? It's energy. It's gas. It's gas. It's able to what? Get you from point A to point B. And now there's no gas. For people who live in hurricane areas like I and Marshall, we understand this type of scenario. And I'm going to tell you right now, to these countries, you're going to suffer far greater than what we suffer on the Eastern Seaboard during a time when there's no gas, no water, no food, no nothing, when a hurricane nestles in and we're stuck. We can't travel. We can't do anything. And I promise you, you're going to feel our pain. In fact, I hope you feel our fucking pain and suffer and die from it. Yes, I do. I feel this. We are about to what? Exact vengeance for what they have done. Remember, the Five Eyes spied on President Trump. The Five Eyes had illegally done criminal activities on American citizens, used that type of information to spy on a sitting president, to spy on a president coming in, many other people. Don't ever forget what this is about. This is about pain and suffering. This is about retribution. And this is about a big fuck you and die. And I can't wait for it to happen, Marshall.
They're going to be scrapping for fuel, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you. I almost think that Mad Max was a forewarning.
All right, dude, President Trump should put out a Mad Max thing. I mean, he should.
That would be great. You know, the guy with the thing on the bike and the fucking...
Keep me updated when President Trump's going to speak. We got 50 minutes. I'm going to blow through this, so I apologize. Let me blow through it for everybody. Birthright citizenship means children of illegal aliens can vote to tax your children and seize your inheritance. Absolutely. This is from Stephen Miller. So don't let it happen. Don't let these people shit their eggs, okay, that are illegals on American territory and then go back to their fucking shithole, dirt slop, worst fucking country in the world and allow these kids to what? Gain access because of some arbitrary and some nonsensical 14th Amendment thing. And we're going to get to all that because that's part of it. I'm going to have to lay it out very quickly. I'm not going to be able to go through all these different artifices. Let me go through some of the structural commentary. And is there a like, share, and subscribe? Drop us a gold pill. Comments, questions, and concerns. I can see Rumble blowing up. Thank you over here. Thank you over here on pill.net. Let me continue. Listen to this shit. They're scared shitless. Democrat hurled startling accusation at Trump after watching him at the Supreme Court. Listen to this crap.
So President Trump, I don't need to tell you, was there in court. I don't know if you were able to see him.
I did.
Well, I wonder what your observations were and why you even think he was there.
Listen to this shit. Listen to this dirt slop.
We were in the same row. And
dirt slop!
So I saw him. Quite a few folks were sneaking peeks over at him. He seemed to, he sat quietly and, was looking down at times from what I observed and, seemed to be part of what the rest of the crowd was a part of, listening to the argument. He left a little early. He's the first sitting president, as I understand it, to ever attend in person a U.S. Supreme Court argument. And
wow.
I wish I didn't conclude this, but the history and his past behavior has, strongly suggested it's true. Is someone who operates with leverage, tries to blow by the laws, sees laws and the Constitution, unfortunately, as speed bumps on his way to advancing his own agenda. It seems like there's a potential he was trying to, intimidate this U.S. Supreme Court. Not that they can be.
Oh.
try to just make it clear that this is
But
very
they can't
important to him
be,
and he's
said.
watching. I don't think that's an appropriate message to be sending. Maybe
Oh,
that's not the
too
message
bad.
he was trying to send, and I'm getting it all wrong. But based on his past behavior, that is a logical conclusion for me.
Yeah, here's a logical conclusion that I could say to you. Fuck you and die. And I got more of that. Marshall, let's go. We're going to go through it. I got a lot of different commentary.
What do you think
Let's
they're
go.
going to fall on this? What do you think the Supreme Court's going to fall on this?
Well, I mean, I think right now, as I play this, some people are saying it's not going to go in Trump's favor. He's going to lose 5-4. I think there's a possibility that he wins 5-4, not 6-3. And will it fall on Amy Coney Barrett? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, she's the deep, dark Catholic that, I don't know where this is going to go. You know what? I'm completely confused about how I feel about this. I think there's a lot of mixed messages out there in some way. But I think right now, in some way, if this was, this goes against President Trump, then, we're going to have a serious problem in this country. And I don't know where it leads us.
Can't they dice?
I'd like to think 5-4, but an executive order is not going to change this. A lot of different things are going to have to happen. We're not going to know until July or August.
June. I said June.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot longer than that.
Can they slice it up and say, well, this part and that part?
They could. They could.
Like, well,
we don't know. We don't know how they're going to.
Kind of cute.
I mean, everybody's 6-3, 5-4, one way or the other. I don't know. All I know is that Ketanji Brown Jackson is a fucking moron and should be removed. And think about if any of these types of decisions, again, I go back to it, where she's involved and it's ruled that her decision helped bring down or overturn what is happening. And it's relatively discussed very soon and opined that her auto pen position of being in there has been overturned, then every decision that she has been involved with will automatically what? Be vacated out. And so thus, how will that be? So if she is one of the leading opiners to make sure this doesn't pass, think about that, and she has no right to be there, when do we revisit that and then remove her, and then we go back to every decision that she was involved in to help solidify an overturning of a decision that should never happen because she was an auto pen cunt, a jurist that should have never been there. Think about that. Breaking: President Trump eviscerates the birthright citizenship illegal aliens if the Supreme Court concludes oral arguments. Here we go.
Not subject to any foreign power is pretty straightforward. So let me give you these examples. A boy is born here to an Iranian father who has entered the country illegally. That boy is automatically an Iranian national at birth, and he has a duty to provide military service to the Iranian government. Is he not subject to any foreign power?
Not within the meaning of the 1866 Act, Justice Alito. And that's clear from Wong Kim Ark, and it's clear from the debates. What the framers meant by the phrase not subject to any foreign power was referring to the ambassador exception. If it meant what the government contends, basically not a subject of any foreign power, that another country considers you a jus sanguinis citizen, then lawful permanent residence, all foreign nationals.
Well, ordinary public meaning of that would certainly encompass that boy, would it not?
Justice Alito, if you think that the language of the 1866 Act was ambiguous, as Wong Kim Ark says, the shift to the language of the 14th Amendment, which is the operative text, certainly clears up any ambiguity.
Well, what I said about a boy born to an Iranian father is true of children born here to parents who are nationals of other countries. If I'm correct, it's true to a child who's born here to Russian parents. It's true to a child who's born here to Mexican parents. They're automatically citizens or nationals of those countries and have a duty of military service. It sure seems like that makes them subject to a foreign power.
But again, Justice Alito, that would have meant that the children of Irish, Italian, and other immigrants which Wong Kim Ark refers to and the debate the framers refer to, would not have been citizens either. Because if the only test is whether that US-born child is considered a citizen by another country under their jus sanguinis laws, then no foreign nationals' children would be.
Well, in all of those cases, the parents could be naturalized, and then the children would be derivatively naturalized when the parents were naturalized.
It seems to be there's going to be a discrepancy, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people are trying to push back on how we see this narrative. I got big articles. I'm just going to have to move forward because we got too many things. Let me show you the auto pen jurist, Ketanji Jackson, who's probably the most stupidest person on the Supreme Court. She's pretty bad. President Trump has just left the Supreme Court after witnessing a masterclass with John Sauer, destroyed DI, Ketanji Braxton, the auto pen fucking hooker. Saucer's clear, 14th Amendment requires allegiance to America. This is a good one.
What they were doing was departing from that common law rule in the way that you suggest. That is, they were seeking to have this turn on domicile. I think you have a number of hurdles to accomplish those two things. One of which I think is that when we look at this court's case law, and no one I think has mentioned Schooner's Exchange, but it appears that that was an 1812 case in which it seems as though the court had already accepted at the time of the ratification of the 14th Amendment that the allegiance that you were talking about was the English common law rule. That, in other words, allegiance meant that you are covered by the laws of the jurisdiction, that you can rely on that jurisdiction's protection. That's what allegiance meant. Now, you're saying today, no, allegiance meant something about loyalty or that kind of idea. But if the Supreme Court had, prior to the 14th Amendment, established that allegiance meant the common law definition, I think your first hurdle is to help us understand why we would believe that when the 14th Amendment was ratified, the framers weren't just incorporating what we had previously said it meant.
Page 572 of the congressional record directly addresses this. They say the concept of temporary and local allegiance from the Schooner Exchange is what is meant by, or temporary and local jurisdiction from the Schooner Exchange is what is meant by the word jurisdiction in the 14th Amendment. Senator Trumbull says, I thought about saying owing allegiance, but again, quote, there's a sort of allegiance from persons temporarily resident in the United States, whom we have no right to make citizens. So he expressly and consciously rejected reliance on Schooner.
What do we do with, I mean, that's a debate and it's a discussion, very valid. But then we have a subsequent debate between Fessenden and Wade, where the same concept comes up and it becomes clear, at least from Senator Wade's perspective, that that's wrong. So Fessenden, and I'm not sure whether these are senators, I apologize. Fessenden says, suppose a person is born here of parents from abroad temporarily in this country. Wade responds, the senator says a person may be born here and not be a citizen. I know that is so in one instance, in the case of the children of foreign ministers who reside near the United States, et cetera, et cetera. So it appears as though in that exchange, at least Senator Wade believed that the English common law understanding of what it means to have allegiance, to be a temporary person on the soil was what was being adopted.
Yeah, that content or that exchange strongly supports us. If you look at it in context, Senator Wade has introduced a version that says only birth on U.S. soil and doesn't have any allegiance or jurisdictional element to it. And so Senator Fessenden stands up and says, well, that can't be right because, obviously, what about the children of temporary visitors? It has this, it's another one of these statements that has this.
So he's pointing out that a lot of these people, the squat and pop people, are purposely allowed to cross the border and allowed to engage in shitting out their fucking dirt slop fucking children or whatever, the excrement, and then allow these people to stay here because they get quarter. That's the bottom line. That's what we're fighting for right now in some way. And I think the argument about all this stuff is that if we don't preface it in the right way, we don't manage this in a right way, if we don't see this in the right way, and then these illegal fucking scum or Chinese people that just come over there, they pop their shoot, and then the kids get to say it because they're allowed to have it. Oh, well, they came over here, but the parents got to go. See, that is, I just see the lunacy of all this stuff. All we're doing is what? We're destroying our culture, destroying the population from generational birth that's been here in some way, and allowing anybody to come over here to pop a squat, push out a fucking third world scum shit. All right. And then we got to what? Take care of them while their parents are dipped out? No. That's absolutely ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. No. And I think is that President Trump was there to make sure in some way that he showcases that this type of behavior will basically rudimentarily undercut his immigration authority, undercut our country and our sovereignty in so many different ways. And if we don't some way get a handle on it, it's gonna be basically done. It's gonna be finished. I got one more. Go ahead, Marshall. I got something.
There's no way that they can allow this. I mean, no other country allows it.
I know, but it doesn't mean if they're not going to do it.
I know that, but that should still be brought into context with the Supreme Court, and they should look at that. And how can you find it legal that that China can have actual companies that pay
1.5 million fucking Chinese fucking places that are allowed to fucking pop a squat and shit out their kid.
I mean, we can't do that in China. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And why would you want to do that? Keep it
Basically,
here. Keep it white.
we're allowing
keep it white. Make it white. Make it right. Keep it here. Pop out as many kids you have. Yeah.
We're allowing them to rape our country. That's all that is.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, look, I think there are things and provisions in place. If I had to guess, it might go 5-4. I'm not really sure. Some conservatives, leading justices, have had hard questions for Solicitor General John Sauer on Wednesday when he argued to reverse the 130 years. The cases involve Trump's executive order instructing agencies not to recognize citizenship for U.S.-born children with at least one parent who is an American citizen. Yeah, I agree with that. Birthright citizenship is the view that anyone born in the United States, even a child of illegal immigrants, is automatically a U.S. citizen. Let me tell you right now, Axios quoted this. Who gets to be an American and therefore enjoy the rights and responsibilities that come from the U.S. citizenship? I quote the movie Civil War. What kind of American are you? Let me be clear. If you're not an American that we can speak of, then you need to be terminated. That's what I'm talking about. We are going to be devolving into that scenario. That movie, even though it's a dystopian futuristic scenario, but that leads to what? The scenario that we're entering in. A dystopian world that no laws matter, nothing matters in some way, and nothing you can do in some way that will overturn this. And then you will have a plurality of a majority of a country that will push back on this. I say again to everybody, what kind of American are you? If you're not somebody, and let me put it clear, and how do I preface this? How do I say this? How do I want to say this in some way that effectuates a reality? An understanding is that if you're not truly fixed, a permanent home resident where you reside with lawful status, a U.S. citizen with a green card holder, required proof
Trump's on.
of intent, voting taxes, and property ownership, you're not American. And you could fuck off and die.
Trump's on now.
I got you. Calm down.
I'm calm.
Past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before. Before discussing this current situation, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. That hit was quick, lethal, violent, and respected by everyone all over the world. After rebuilding our military during my first term, we have by far the strongest military anywhere in the world. And now we're working along with Venezuela and are, in a true sense, joint venture partners. We're getting along incredibly well in the production and sale of massive amounts of oil and gas, the second largest reserves on earth after the United States of America. We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world. From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first, and perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was an evil genius, brilliant person, a horrible human being, however, the father of the roadside bomb, and he lived just horrible what he did. Iran would have been perhaps in far better, stronger position. Had he lived, we would have had probably a different conversation tonight. But you know what? We'd still be winning and winning big. And then very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash, took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had, flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran. And they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. Would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts, had I not terminated that terrible deal. And I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible. And they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I've traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, please, sir, please finish the job, every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest stock market ever, with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming. They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our drill baby drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we are #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet, without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policies, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Think of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And that number will soon be substantially higher than that. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. #1, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And #2, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the Strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days. We've done actually much better than I thought, but we had to take that little journey to Iran to get rid of this horrible threat. With our historic tax cuts, where people are just now talking about receiving larger refunds than they ever thought possible. They are getting so much more money than they thought. That's from the great big beautiful bill. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing. The brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do, when it's all over, the United States will be safer, stronger, more prosperous, and greater than it has ever been before. May God bless the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, and good night.
Well, no mention of NATO. No mention of NATO. No mention of anything that we were remotely told or remotely thought that was going to take place. It was just an update, a panoramic view of how things are working. Again, do you believe him, or do you believe Iran, or do you believe all these other jerk-offs that they have inside knowledge? How do they have inside knowledge? No one knows what's really going on there. Again, I will make sure that I discuss the idea about what I talked about the regime change narrative that President Trump so eloquently talked about multiple times. And he highlighted that. And we talked about that here in some way. So if you really put these things in perspective as a theatrical masterpiece, when I said that the regime change narrative that happened on Trump's watch effectuated or was a byproduct, did it happen because we did it, allowed it to unfurl out, expand and spread, or unroll out? Or if we didn't facilitate it directly and only indirectly, more than likely, I guess that's certainty that Trump is all about for the incoming regime, who he says is smart, intelligent, they know what's up, they're going to play ball, but we're going to still hit them again. You follow the narratives here, Marshall, in some way. It seems to me in some way that, again, President Trump likes to say a lot and then simultaneously said, yeah, and then we're going to hit him harder again. So it tells me on he's keeping both narratives reflexive. He's saying, yeah, they're good, we're fine with that, but we're going to hit them hard again. He's not making people react or have a reaction in one way or another. He's keeping them off balance. That's what President Trump does. He is reactionary to the chaotic situation. storm, so to speak. So he sets up, excuse me, a narrative that, hey, we could do two things simultaneously and it's okay. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there was no bluster. There was no like blast. No, he didn't put NATO on blast. He didn't do any of that. He basically was very measured what he said.
Yeah.
He's very, very kind of like laid back, which I think is good. It opens up. Look, he said what's up. He said where we're at. He explained the level, the point where we're at this stage. And then he kind of like said some mellow things. He also mentioned, you know, how the war is going to a degree. But the whole thing was very, I don't want to, how do you say it? Very laid back. That was to me was a very laid back way of talking to the American people or the whole world or whatever.
He doesn't tip his hand. He doesn't show what he's doing. He doesn't say this. He says this and that simultaneously, and then he puts these two things in flux, and then you cannot in some way come about trying to upset that narrative. That's what he does. He creates a marginal representation of chaos that is in flux simultaneously with suggesting that, oh, it's not as chaotic as you think, but here we go. Let me drop this. You know, there's so many things that I think President Trump utilizes as his, let's just say, off ramp, so to speak, in some way. He's got to say things in some way that affects the markets while talking to the American people, and also saying, hey, look, to the military, and he's giving multiple impressions all over the place. He's talking to the market, talking to the American people, talking to the military, talking to so many different operating thought processes out there. And he's basically saying different things to each and every one of them. And that is how he conditionally looks at his 4D, 5D chess. He's saying one thing to one person, one thing to another. And then we have to interpret, what does this all mean? Where does this all go in some way? I think that one thing that was resolute, and again, I will make sure that we were discussing it today about the objectives that he was talking about, is that what are they? I mean, who are they? I mean, why hit them harder now and into the future if a deal is in place? Or maybe there's a deal in place. He said the specter of blackmail. I believe there's a lot of blackmail. Again, who is the blackmailers? Who is the extortionists? Who are the many people that we discussed early on? And we're setting up the hegemony to buy oil from the United States. That's what he said. He said it. You know, if you don't want to protect it, then fake it for yourselves. You know, do something that's logically responsive, because if you don't do this, you're going to fall under the scenario that you have basically created for your own self-destruction. I thought that was an interesting tidbit. I paraphrased there, but he's talking about the United Nations and the EU, France, Great Britain, many other countries who basically have moved off on this in some way, where the United States is now controlled more of the hegemony in some way. We are setting up new businesses and allies and partners while you're stuck in the EU, let's just say, retard mode and in reverse. And you're not going to get out of it until what? Until you cut ties. I think that was an absolute slap in the face to NATO. And NATO is going to realize in some way, because the bifurcation of those two, let's just say, prevailing economic powerhouses, one, it's more recent than the artifice of the actual agitprop of I would say that NATO blockade, which has been just involved for the last 50, 60 years, which is it's a dinosaur group. So when you look at the EU and NATO, the EU controls NATO, and so NATO, Great Britain, Spain, Italy, They're actually forcing the hand. There is something to say in some way. There may be a possibility that the NATO allies that are the leaders of their country are trying to demonstrably cut ties from the EU, utilizing what President Trump is saying. Bifurcate in some way. So it's not necessarily that NATO is become so irresponsible and so, let's just say, vacuous that they don't want to respond to us. He's setting them up to help them bifurcate and separate, I think, from the UE. I think so. Because they have a controlling blockade of what NATO is. And then maybe if they are able to break that up, NATO can, basically disintegrate and move into its own scenario. But we are no longer going to play a part in this matter. I think he wants these individual state fiefdoms to remove themselves from NATO so they can be part of the peace board in a new plan going on, Marshall.
Yeah, and not become part of EU, as I mentioned earlier, where they're taking down the flag, one of the small countries, like, I forget, one of the European countries. Yeah. So you lead to that. But the other thing that what he just did tonight was he gets to draw the response from he gets to hear all the responses. And I guarantee he pours over the responses, the reactions of all the people from these different countries, their folks, their representatives, and he gets to read over, all his people get to read over and tell him, this is how each one of these are reacting. Yeah. He gets a good feed from that. I think this was almost like a catfishing.
Yeah, that's a good representation of how you're aligning this, because I do believe in some way he did not make any assertions about NATO. He did not assess that in this manner. He basically put it on the EU blockade, who was forcing NATO allies, and they are forcing NATO allies not to align with President Trump's edicts in regards to the war. You have to consider that. So it's not necessarily about NATO. It's about the EU bureaucratic control of NATO. Okay? And I think that's what he's trying to cut its losses from. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the new NATO could be re-represented and reimagined into another scenario with a larger block of people of a worldwide scenario that is outside the European continent. I think what he's trying to do is that if you look at the EU as like the alien, the alien species that, gets its tentacles around you and just plants its thing. That's what it is. It's there is a virus that is involved with this, and that virus also is a byproduct of prevailing profiteers, individuals that are involved with the crime syndicate that want to control Iran as a proxy through all this as we speak. Now, I don't have any proof of that per se. I'm just projecting. Darla, gift of the can. I'm not tired of winning. God bless our commander-in-chief, President Trump, our great military personnel. This is the best coming. Yeah, I mean, he's speaking really good stuff. Thank you, Thea, for the Canwood USA, dropping 717 gold pills. Trump one dropping the cookie. Thank you so much. Like, share, and subscribe. Drop us a gold pill. Help out MarshallGoldfight.com /SurfDog74. We'll leave you with this because, we're not too much over the time. I said it was going to be about 15, 20 minutes. I want to show you this. I want to end with a couple of things. Australian politician Ralph Babbitt drops a major April Fool's joke, saying aliens are living among us, including alien human hybrids. I've been briefed this morning. Aliens are in 51. Okay, let's play.
It's true. There are aliens living amongst us.
Okay.
There are aliens in Area 51. Mm-hmm. There are even alien human hybrids.
Okay.
I have been briefed this morning in a top secret intelligence briefing that exposes all Unfortunately, I am forbidden from speaking about it under pain of death. But know this, I will fight for accountability and I will fight for transparency. There is more to come. Stay tuned. Follow for more.
You know what I'll say about this is that now that we're having the fight about the 14th Amendment and all these other things, Section 3, I will ask people, well, they came, they probed, they voted, birthright citizenship for extraterrestrial fuck-ups. The 14th Amendment, abductions, because nothing says natural born like a hybrid lab baby. I'm being funny. Listen to what I'm saying. How about this one? Because we're talking about the 14th Amendment. From anal probe to anchors, how the Greys exploit your 14th Amendment. Anchor babies from Zeta Reticula. Thanks, 14th Amendment. Your absolute clown show. You see the funny? You see the humor in this? You see what I'm saying? I'm not implying that what this guy is saying. What I'm saying is, how does that fall into the 14th Amendment? If we have a problem with human beings squatting on American land and then dipping out and going back to the country and leaving their, let's just say, their filth, their rot, their refuge, their ill-gotten gains, their whatever, okay? And then they become natural-born citizens, which is disgraceful. How are we going to deal with anchor babies from Zeta Reticula? Because of the human hybrid program, as Matt Gaetz has talked about. And I will get into that. Let's talk about that in a second as we move forward. Because Matt Gaetz came out like this, and whatever you want to think about this, I'll leave you with this in some way. You know, as we're talking about alien invasions, invasive technology, listen to this stuff. He says, Gaetz says he was briefed about a secret program where aliens are breeding with humans. Again, so is the hybridization of these people are going to be allowed in our country if the Supreme Court says no illegal alien is allowed to be here thereafter? Think about what I'm posing. I know it's kind of comical. It's very sardonic. I'm trying to be caustic because it makes an argument. Gaetz says humans were involved and were allegedly abducting from war zones and migrant caverns. Let's listen to this a little bit.
The biologics that are not human that have been discovered, and like even some of the briefings that aren't classified just need to be out in the public. I mean, I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some
Do you believe him? Yes or no? Let's continue on.
Hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that.
Non-human biologics, interracial alien mating. What the F is going on? Look, wait a second. You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing? Can you please unpack that?
Yeah, I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the United States Army, came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. I had members of my staff there, and what they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. Now, again, I didn't verify this, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there were like between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was a group, members of Congress, to all show up at the same time at all of these different locations so that any of those activities could not be moved. And of course.
Okay. Your thoughts, Marshall. What is your reaction about this? I'll just leave it up to you.
Well, look, obviously there's I believe there's a bunch of goddamn, other people. I wouldn't call them aliens. I would say that there's other species that are here. they try to mock it. When they try to mock it, make a joke out like the first guy. When they try to mock shit and make it act like it's ha funny, they're actually telling the truth, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't see how there can't be other creatures than us. I mean, there's every kind of animal out there, and we've got, you can't go beyond the Arctic.
Well, from Anaprobe to anchors, how the Greys exploit your 14th Amendment. I think that's funny. I mean, I'm just saying, how is the 14th Amendment that's being discussed in the Supreme Court is going to lawfully domicile the discussion of anchor babies from Zeta Reticuli that are being mass produced as a hybridization underground? You see my candor? You see my jovial thought process about I'm trying to be condescending and sardonic. I mean, they came, they probed, they voted birthright citizenship for extraterrestrial fuck ups. What I'm saying is, what have we learned? That we have a mix of a human hybridization that is inside our culture and our country. How is that going to fit into the 14th Amendment that's actually being, let's just say, discussed right now? I mean, think about it. That's a serious question. Okay? That's a serious question. Are they citizens? Are they born without birth certificates? Were they abducted in some way and forced in subjugation to birth alien hybrids? I'm making arguments and discussions that are outside the purview of what we're discussing. But I'm also, trying to cross-check you into this world that we haven't been discussing, we haven't been seeing. See, I don't care about the Artemis or the fake moon, all the other stuff. I'm throwing out other curveballs out there. I hope you understand that in some way. I see you. Who said this? Senior Polo, gift to the can. Wouldn't an anchor baby be fruit of the poisonous tree? Parents are illegal. That's a good analogy, and I like that analogy. But again, I'm throwing out this type of dysphoria discussion in some way. Marshall, do you want to make a caveat on this? I mean, do you think I'm just completely off the mark, suggesting that we got to worry about alien hybridization that's underground, that's going to come up, and we're going to find out there are alien half-breed Nephilim people walking around because of all this stuff? Where do they get their quarter under the 14th Amendment? What the Supreme Court is going to answer? And would it matter? Does it even matter? Look, I'm trying to legitimately pose a point sardonically, sarcastically, but I want you to understand that in some way.
Well, I mean, is that what this is all about? Is that what this whole birthright citizenship is all about?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is, and all of a sudden they're like, you aliens are gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
could be all aliens.
And people talk about aliens being from outer space. They don't know outer space.
Yeah.
They're from other places, some other areas.
Inner Earth, underground, it's here. Do you understand? Matt Gaetz just said, he said the U.S. government briefed him on alien breeding programs. This is coming from Dookie. Not UFO sightings, not unidentified objects in the sky, breeding programs. In 2017, the Pentagon confirmed a secret $22 million UFO program called AATIP. In 2023, David Grush, a former intelligence officer, testified under oath to Congress that the U.S. has recovered non-human craft and biologics. In 2024, the Pentagon opened up an official UAP disclosure. Every year, the story gets wilder and wilder, and every year it turns out to be true. First, it was UFOs aren't real. And then it was, okay, they're real, but they're probably drones. Then it was, okay, they've been recovering craft for decades. And now a former congressman is on camera saying the government is running interspecies breeding programs. Yeah, I mean, look, You can't overlook that. That's hardcore. I mean, do you believe he's lying? I mean, do you understand what he just said? As I make a lot of superfluous, condescending, facetious commentary, do you understand what he just said? Either Matt Gaetz is lying, and that's what I'm saying, about classified briefings, which is a federal crime, or the U.S. government has been keeping the biggest secret in human history and briefed a guy who wouldn't even keep his Venmo payments private. Okay, Marshall, that's my thought. That's my opinion about that in some way. Either he's lying, making this up, but I have to believe in some way, because I've heard it from many different ufologists and other people. Richard Dolan, who's one of my favorite authors in some way, is that it's a lot real than we think. And I think the idea of discussing what a birthright citizenship is needs to be, let's just say, open and interpret to the idea is there a forced program, clandestine, secretly abducting people and having aliens, let's just say, create or inject their hybridization, not through intercourse, but obviously through their hybridization to create half alien, half human population. Are they among us now that people say they're clones? What say you before we dip out?
Well, I mean, why would Matt Gaetz even talk about that?
I don't even know why it was
What
brought up.
motivated him to just bring it
Exactly.
up?
I have no idea. I mean,
Obviously, he brought it up for some fucking reason. I don't think he's heard for clicks or likes or any of that shit.
Exactly. Why say it? Why say it now?
I think he just blew out the truth for the hell of it. He wanted to, why would he do it other than that? He obviously wants people to know what the fuck is going on.
Right.
I mean, I don't think the guy's some kind of wacko.
Mm.
And he's like, why are we holding this back?
No, I don't think he's a wacko. I mean, I think that the idea of discussing this could really get him into a problematic scenario that he may not be able to walk out of. But if he was, like he said, as congressman, as all this stuff, and now that he is no longer, that he's able to speak a lot more free. Hello, fellas from Parnip, Nevada. What's up, Green Eye people? Truth Saren, what's up? I see everybody out there. Audrey, as someone who doesn't have a lot going for them, being born in the U.S. is one of my biggest achievements and a huge deal to me. So I want to keep citizenship away from as many people possible. Let me tell you, Audrey, you have a lot going for you. You're an American citizen. God loves you. Don't act like that. Don't pretend that you can't be something that you're not. You're saying, I don't have a lot going for me or them. No, you have a lot going for you. They don't have a lot going for them. I know the idea is that how do we, as a Christian, how do we utilize that and cover them as a basis? Well, we have laws. The same laws that killed Jesus Christ are the same laws that we utilize in some way to make sense about our scenario. You have to consider that. We're not heels, we're not horrible people in some way, but I don't want your shit rag, third world, dumpster fire kids that are out there to be squatted out and left to be what? American citizens when they grow up to hate us. I don't want them killed. I don't want them murdered. I just want you to take charge and remove them. And I think in some way we have to do something to what? Control the nonsense, control the noise. I think in some way. All right, we're going to end with this. And I didn't get to talk about Charlie Kirk. I didn't get to talk about anything about the bullet, about this stuff, but let's listen to this batshit crazy broad.
That I have spoken to that were intimately involved in this case, I would willfully sit on the defense side and say, this person told me that the feds planted the gun. This person told me that the bomb dogs couldn't find it. How can you sit back and pretend that you are like a friend of Charlie Kirk because you're trying to get a patsy put into prison? Like, you guys are completely monstrous and pretending that you're on the side of morality. Like I said, I have recorded and documented every piece of this case. I have been meticulous about this. There is an overwhelming, we love to use that word, there was an overwhelming amount of evidence that the feds set this kid up as a patsy. Okay? Everyone in the town, all the local sheriff departments, the SWAT team, they believe that the feds came in and they started lying and they were sending people on wild goose chase and they, said the gun was here and they said it was over there. There was no gun. They didn't want the bomb dogs to go into certain places.
So she said two things that are true. First of all, the sheriff that resigned recently because of the bullet didn't match. If it don't match, you have to quit type of scenario. What she is suggesting in some way, the sheriff that allowed Tyler Robinson's family to turn himself in, whether they knew each other or not, resigned abruptly after the findings that the ATF came out. That's number one. And that's oddly coincidental. Number two, she's saying that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the feds outside of Utah, were involved in covering this up and making sure they were planting evidence to put it on him, to divert from the real truth and whatever that real truth is. So if the bullet doesn't match, well, matches is something different. It's not conclusively be connected to the rifle, unable to identify. So will it be enough to acquit? Well, I believe that the defense will use this as a major stalking horse to push a narrative of reasonable doubt. So was there a setup possibility or reasonable doubt? Not a conspiracy. Because remember, they're saying he's a lone gunman that did it. It's not a conspiracy. So if we're leaving out no rational certainty to chance and lack of evidence based upon how you can ascertain what you see here, as we're talking about common sense, you have to ask the question, because really this is going to go to the jury. It's not really about you and I. There's going to be reasonable doubt versus imaginary doubt, not a vague or speculative outcome. Real tangible proof that can preside or persuade evidence that can automatically have one juror say, not guilty. So ending the corporate, So the match equals the identification. The evidence is known. The question is, how are we looking at the reference sample? The conclusion is to a reasonable scientific certainty that the items don't share a common origin. So that means the bullet doesn't equal the actual firearm, the weapon. Neither a clear match, inconclusive, nor a clear exclusion. Evidence does not allow the experts to conclude it came from a source gun. There's no definitive leak, no conclusive viability to suggest one way or another. So what I'm saying is right now is that what we are about the Tyler Robinson case is that it may seem clickbaity. It may seem pop in this way. Why did the sheriff resign rather quickly? Was he part of it? Did the sheriff help make sure that he eviscerated Tyler Robinson's entry into the sheriff's department office during that time? Because there's no pictures of him entering at all, with his family or not. The other thing I would suppose in some way, and to characterize in this, is that you can glean evidence off somebody in multiple fashions and frame them. I'm not asserting that the FBI framed him. I don't have any proof of that, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. What she is asserting in some way is that the ATF and the broken bullet that hit his spine supposedly does not add up or does not link up. It's not conclusively, let's just put it this way, viable to add up in a fashion that they can suggest that it works with the gun or it came out of that gun. So ultimately, what's going to happen is, and forget about her and forget about, Tyler Robinson and forget about all this other stuff. The question is, will there be enough evidence that isn't presumable reasonable doubt or enough evidence that they can showcase that he didn't do it? I mean, he admitted 3 or 4 times that he did it. The question is, who did he admit it to and why did he admit it to? And that I will leave you with, and so you can understand that, Marshall, and your final opining thoughts as we dip out of here. Is a long night. What do you think about Trump's conversation?
I think Trump's conversation was fine. I think it was just mellow.
Yeah.
I think it was used as a fucking information getter.
Yeah.
So you can find out he wants to know who's sitting where they're at. Where are they
Excellent.
at? Where are you
Excellent
at?
viewpoint. That's an
The other one
absolute.
with Candace Owens is that
What I was suggesting.
what Candace Owens said, she's not wrong.
Mhm.
We've said this since the very beginning that this whole
Right.
thing happened, that this kid, Tyler Robinson, didn't just crawl up on something on some roof and make it happen. This guy didn't do it. We all know that. Everybody
Well,
knows.
let's put it this way. He's not charged with a conspiracy, but understanding that he may be part of a conspiracy and he's not aware of it. Or we're just not seeing the conspiracy because the conspiracy is being covered up. And the lone gunman theory sounds a lot more providential. The problem is, if the bullet doesn't fit, you must acquit. I think the problem is where the ATF and the ballistic labs have labeled this in some way where they can't connect his gun and the screwdriver that supposedly that he unpacked and tied together, which he has all the fingerprints on, is very illuminating. And I think the people that are out there saying he did it and we must automatically suggest one thing. I say to all the people out there, I say to all the people out there who've never been in courtrooms, who never dealt with lawyers, you don't know the evidence, you haven't seen the evidence, shut the fuck up. You're all about book liquors. You're all about, I mean, I'm not here to attack her or it's whatever. I'm here to find out the evidence who killed Charlie Kirk. And anybody that tries to, in some way, misinfo to upset the apple cart of explaining this stuff in some way, I find you wholly responsible. I find you credulous in what? In making sure that you're selling a narrative that we haven't heard. I like to ask all you fucking scumbags, and there are big names on pill.net. Were you alive when OJ was there and all the evidence was coming out and all these other things? Did you support all that? Or was it a different scenario? You're all about Tyler Robinson did it because of this or that. I'm not here or there. What I'm saying is I'm trying to find out what the evidence is. And I'm not listening to Kevin Owens to get me evidence, but she might be an arbiter of information for the defense. And if that happens, I promise you things are going to change. Because if she can prove in some way for his defense, whether she knows him or not, does she care about him in any way? Will they call her? The question will be, this is the overarching thing. If the bullet does not inconclusively connect to the rifle, that means there is a second shooter. And that is Roswell. Excuse me, that's Dallas. That's JFK scenario stuff. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. All right, that's our
rolling
discussion.
hill, the green.
Right, all right. So like
Mhm.
anybody I see, and I've also been attacked by big name platforms. You're a kook, blah blah blah. I
Grassy
don't even
knoll.
cover this stuff. And look, you know what? If you don't want to reflexively, responsibly have conversations and just attack people, then fuck you. I don't care about the big names on Pilled, and I know the 3 big names that are out there that are pushing back and that are attacking people, and behind the scenes, they're attacking me. And I can tell you right now, they can fuck off. I'm allowed to have my opinion to share with you. Do I know the answer? Of course not. Do I side with Candace Owens? I don't know what Candace Owens believes or not. I don't. I'm all about me, my opinion, my thoughts, and the way I perceive things. And if you don't like it, and you want to toggle me in and categorize me as I have put forth a couple of weeks ago when Thomas was on my show, then you can fuck off and die. And Thomas even agreed with that there's a lot of people on Pilled and maybe other platforms that are doing this purposely to what? To destroy your platform. I think about that, what he said. Go back and watch it. Thank you, Marshall. Any thoughts? I want to thank you. I mean, it's a long night. It's a very, very long night. Short conversation with President Trump.
No, it was all good, man.
Yeah, it was
I think we're heading the right direction. All we got to do is just sit back.
Yeah.
Just don't be I'm not going to even say panicking.
It's
just,
okay.
Just relax.
Yeah, that's a pejorative. Why don't
all
we
you
use the
got to
term
do
as,
is sit back.
don't be reflexive. See, we can
don't
move
be
panicking
reactive.
aside because
Don't
it
have
is a
knee-jerk.
pejorative. Don't be reflexive. Be responsive and deal with it in that manner. That's how you should see it. You're not a panicking. It is a pejorative. When people say that, it is absolute pejorative. And I agree that it's been pushed and utilized on good people that have very good thought processes about what they see. And I think that is an unfortunate pejorative that is maligned on people. And I don't use that, and I will never use that. I think that we need to reconsider how we see things, and we don't utilize labels and other things that could otherwise undercut how we move this forward, how we see these things, and how we explain these things, Marshall. Have a good night. Be well, be safe. We will return on Friday. I might finish up the show on Thursday because I had a lot more to do. Good night. God bless. Be well. Thank you, Marshall, for hanging out.
Yeah,
if
man.
you want to help him out, ko-fi.com/surfdog74. Ciao, Bella.
Good night.